everyone, my name is Brittany and we're so excited you're joining us today. Today we're talking about the story of Elijah being taken up to heaven. It's an incredible story. Elijah spent his life honoring God with his choices, and at the end of his life, we see that God honored him back in an amazing way. That's what we're talking about today, making choices that honor Jesus. That's why we're saying it every day, I make choices that honor Jesus. We're gonna start things off together by singing a song, so let's go ahead and stand up. Sing this out with us as loud as you can.
It's time to play some music. It's time to make some noise. It's time to dance, clap your hands, don't stand still. Now let me hear you lose your voice. Come on, listen up. Let's go. Listen up, we got a reason why we're singing. Who I wanna be. Take control, feel the music in your soul. Who I wanna be. I'm a child of God, you know it. Hey, I was born for this. It's why I was made. Don't have to be afraid, 'cause I know that I am saved. A child of God, that's who I wanna be. Listen up, we got a reason why we're singing. Who I wanna be. Take control, feel the music in your soul. Who I wanna be. Hey, listen up. Hey, listen up, we got a reason why we're singing. Who I wanna be. Take control, feel the music in your soul. Who I wanna be. Now put your hands up high, put them way down low. Move side to side, stop. Let's go. Come on, come on. Let me see you dance. Come on, come on. Listen up, we got a reason why we're singing. Who I wanna be. Take control, feel the music in your soul. Who I wanna be. Hey, listen up, we got a reason why we're singing. Who I wanna be. Take control, feel the music in your soul. Who I wanna be. Put your hands up high and let them know who I wanna be. I'll move side to side, come on, let them know who I wanna be. Put your hands up high, hands down low, side to side, let them know who I wanna be. Put your hands up high, hands down low, side to side, let them know who I wanna be.
You guys sounded so good. Thank you for singing along with us. And now we're gonna take some time to watch a Bible story together. Like I said earlier, today's story is about Elijah being taken up to heaven. So let's check it out.
God's story, Elijah. So part of God's story is about a guy named Elijah, and it goes like this. Elijah's job was to talk to God and tell God's special family, the Israelites, what God said. So he was called a prophet. Unfortunately, the rulers of Israel were King Ahab and his wife Jezebel. They were the most wicked leaders Israel had ever had, and they didn't care what God had to say. They made Elijah's job really hard, but just wait until you see what God did for him. See, Ahab and Jezebel worshipped Baal instead of God. Baal was a false god, an idol. Kids, an idol is anything that gets the attention we should be giving God. Money, stuff, or even people can be idols. And when Ahab and Jezebel worshiped Baal, they turned a lot of God's family away from God too. But here's the thing. God wants all of our worship and love, and he totally deserves it. So God sent Elijah to tell Ahab and Jezebel that it wasn't going to rain for a while. There wouldn't even be dew. That means crops wouldn't grow. So the Israelites would run out of food. Then they would think Baal was angry, and they'd blame Ahab. When the king heard Elijah's message, he was furious. He wanted to kill Elijah. So God told Elijah to go hide in the wilderness. And just like he had said, there was no rain. In fact, for 3 more years, it was dry. But Ahab and Jezebel kept right on worshiping Baal and asking him for rain. Of course, that didn't work. So they stayed mad at Elijah too. They actually killed as many of God's prophets as they could find. But all that time, God kept Elijah safe. And Elijah kept telling people to believe in the real God. A few did, like a widow who saw God do miracles through Elijah. But most kept worshiping Baal with Ahab and Jezebel. Finally, in the 3rd year of drought, God told Elijah to go talk to Ahab again. This time, Elijah challenged the king to a contest that would show who was real, Baal or God. Ahab brought 450 prophets of Baal to meet Elijah at a place called Mount Carmel. They built an altar to worship Baal, and Elijah built an altar to worship God. They both prayed for fire and then waited to see whose God brought it first. And since Baal was a false god, you can probably guess who won. Yep, God. In fact, he sent so much fire, it burned up Elijah's altar and everything around it. After that, Elijah prayed for rain, and God sent it. It seems like maybe Ahab and Jezebel would follow God after that, right? But they only got more angry. Jezebel sent Elijah a message that she was going to kill him, so Elijah ran away again. This time because he was scared. Even though God had kept him safe for years, he wanted to quit being a prophet. He didn't think anybody listened to him anyway. He laid under a tree and said, "I've had enough, Lord." Then he went to sleep. God must have understood how Elijah felt, because guess what he did? First, he sent an angel to cook Elijah some bread. Then God let Elijah see him. Elijah had talked to God a lot, but he'd never seen him. While Elijah was waiting for God, he saw a windstorm, then an earthquake, then a fire pass him by. But God wasn't in any of those. Then he heard a gentle whisper. There was God. Elijah had spent his life obeying God, even though people wanted to kill him for it. But guess what? Ahab and Jezebel never could kill Elijah. Actually, Elijah didn't die, not even of old age. Instead, God sent a chariot of fire, and Elijah rode it right up to heaven. We don't know exactly how that happened, but it did. God didn't make Elijah's job easier, but he did take care of him. And in the end, Elijah got to be with his God, the real God, in heaven. And that's the story of Elijah. So in case you missed it, here's the quick version. Elijah was a prophet. Ahab and Jezebel worshipped idols. Elijah gave them messages from God. They got mad. God told Elijah to run away. Elijah proved God is real. Jezebel got mad. Elijah ran away. He wanted to quit. God was gentle with him. Ahab and Jezebel couldn't kill Elijah. God took Elijah to heaven in a chariot of fire. And that's part of God's story.
Elijah spent his life making choices that honored God. King Ahab and Queen Jezebel had been trying to kill Elijah for years and were never able to. In the end, Elijah never actually died. God took him straight up to heaven. Imagine being there and seeing this like Elisha. What would you be thinking as this whirlwind and chariot of fire came through? I would encourage you to pause the video here and take a couple minutes to talk about that. And then once you're done talking about it, unpause and continue the video. Our friend Pastor Andrew is going to be talking to us a little bit more about our story right now, so let's take a look.
The prophet Elijah had one of the craziest lives in all of the Bible. His job was to speak to the people for God. And this led to all sorts of stories of him doing these amazing miracles, standing up against evil kings and helping other people in desperate situations. And then his crazy life ends in an even crazier way. Chariots of fire come down from heaven and separate Elijah from his friend Elisha. A whirlwind comes down, picks up Elijah, and then Elijah is taken up through the clouds. Then poof! No more fire chariots, no more whirlwind, no more Elijah. He was taken away. What a crazy ending. What's going on here? Well, we see that God is honoring Elijah. Now, you already know what showing honor is. It's when you recognize that someone is special, important, or has done something really impressive. Sometimes we honor these people with awards. Maybe it's that somebody has trained really hard and they got a medal for winning a race. Or maybe it's that a team got a trophy for winning their tournament. Or maybe somebody studied really hard all year long and then they got an award because of their good grades in school. Each of those awards are showing honor to people who have done something impressive. But often, we simply show honor to someone by the way that we treat them. Like if you had a party at your house and your friends show up, and then let's say your principal, coach, and pastor show up also. Now you would probably treat them differently. You would talk to those three differently, and you would act differently towards them, wouldn't you? Well, sure, because those people are special, deserving of honor, so you would treat them in a special way. That is showing honor. And we see that Elijah honored God. Now, he didn't try to honor God by trying to send a trophy up into heaven. God, you're the number one God, here you go. That would be totally strange. But Elijah honored God by the way that he treated God through his choices. That's why we say every day, I make choices that honor Jesus. That's what Elijah did. He made choices to show God how important he is, to show God that he's the most important. Even when it was super hard, Elijah obeyed God. Even though he wasn't perfect, Elijah lived a life in a way that honored God by making choices to go God's way. And here's what's so cool. In 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 30, God is talking, and here's what he says. I will honor those who honor me. Do you see what God is saying here? God is saying that when we honor him with our choices, God in return is going to honor us. Think about that. The King, the creator of the whole world, who deserves all of the honor, wants to honor the people that love him. He wants to lift them up, to make them special and important in his kingdom. That's what we see happening at the end of Elijah's story. Elijah spent his life honoring God, and at the end, Elijah didn't die from sickness or old age, but instead, God showed great honor to Elijah by taking him up with fire chariots and whirlwinds. So cool. And here's what's extra cool. God is looking to honor you too. God sees every little choice you make to honor him. When you feel like doing wrong, but instead you choose to go God's way, God sees those choices. The way that you talk to your parents, the way that you treat your siblings, what you do with your friends, God is watching all of those things so that he can honor you. Some of us will be honored in this life, and some of us will be honored in the next life when Jesus makes all things new. You see, Jesus lived a perfect life, full of honor to God his Father. Even when the choices were hard and hurt, like going to the cross for us, Jesus did it. He always chose to honor God. And what does God do? In return, God turns around and gives all of heaven and earth to Jesus. That's like the ultimate trophy of honor. But Jesus didn't want to just keep all that for himself. He wants to share that honor with us. That's why one day, all of us that follow Jesus will stand before him, and Jesus will honor us before all heaven and earth for the choices that we've made that honor him. When you see how much he loves you, when you see how Jesus wants to share everything he has with you, it's easy for us to determine that every day I make choices that honor Jesus.
The choices we make every day can either bring honor to Jesus or not. I would encourage you to take some time with your parents or a small group leader to talk about if there are choices that you're making that don't honor Jesus. Maybe it's your attitudes or your actions or even the way you treat your siblings. After you talk about that, spend some time answering this question. What one thing can you do this week to live out making choices that honor Jesus? Remember, every day we should make choices that honor Jesus. So that's it for this week, and thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.